In the pages of UFO literature, many hundreds of species of extraterrestrial entity have been described by tens of thousands of witnesses around the world. Among these alien variants, 4 stand out as being by far the most commonly reported: the Greys, the Nordics, the Reptilians, and the Insectoids. In this video, we'll be focusing on the Insectoids, examining their history, appearance, characteristics, technology, and agendas. Insect beings feature in mythologies throughout the world. The Khoisan tribe of Africa regard the praying mantis as the first living creature upon the earth and believe that it granted life to humans and that it even invented language. Radically different from us in every way, lacking so obviously in mammalian attributes, insects in their myriad forms have long been a source of fear and repulsion for human beings. The praying mantis in particular, with its spindly body and huge black eyes, appears distinctly alien to us. It is fitting then that reports of insectoid aliens can be found in the pages of UFO literature. In ufology, the insectoids, sometimes referred to as mantids, are recognizable for their tall stature and for the insect-like bodies and facial features. They're also reported as being in charge of the more commonly reported grey aliens and have long played a significant role in abduction narratives. Abductees typically report that the grey aliens are subordinate to the insectoids, with the insectoids issuing the orders and the greys dutifully performing them. Typically, these orders relate to medical procedures and experiments on the human experiencer. The insectoids are reported as being in between 6 and 9 feet tall, with oily skin, dark brown, green or black in colour. Their bodies are composed of a segmented exoskeleton, and they're often encountered wearing long robes in a variety of colours, while some are unclothed. Despite their fearsome appearance, abductees often report feeling a sense of calm in the presence of the insectoids, and that the beings exude benevolence and empathy, conveying a sense of security and positive intent. An example of this can be found in the testimony of a UFO experiencer, Lucretia Hart. In 2010, Hart told author Mike Cleland about a very close encounter she had with a mantid being. She recalled, "One time, while in my late 20s, I came face to face with a praying mantis-looking thing while standing in what I presume was a ship. It was over 6 feet tall, but hunched and folded over, so that if it stood at its full height, it would be considerably taller than that, probably 12 feet. It was a tan brown with black eyes and an upside-down triangle-shaped head. It totally resembled a praying mantis." Hart says that she was initially terrified by the mantid's appearance, but that her terror soon dissipated and was replaced by a sense of curiosity and comfort, presumably induced by the being. Hart told Mike Cleland, "Without much thought, I almost automatically reached out to touch his face. He didn't have soft skin, but rather a hard shell-like covering. Was it natural, like a real insect? Or was it armor? Was it all an illusion?" The mantis being held himself still for my touch and didn't object. In fact, he seemed rather pleased that I had overcome my natural fear enough to manage such a thing. Although the mantids tend to communicate telepathically, they have been heard using auditory language, which to the human ear sounds like a series of clicks. The mantids also communicate through images. Abductees have repeatedly reported these beings showing them holographic projections depicting the destruction of our planet as a result of human folly, and themes of environmentalism and planetary care are a common thread in their message to us. The mantid's technology is said to be so advanced as to appear like magic. These beings also exhibit strong powers of telepathy and mind control, and, like the Greys, are said to be capable of inducing utterly realistic hallucinations in abductees, manipulating their perceptions of what is happening to them. This is particularly evident in the testimony of Simon Parkes, a British councillor for the UK Labour Party, who claims to have been visited by the Insectoid aliens since his early childhood. Parkes made headlines in 2010 when he went public with his story and recounted to the world's media his alleged experiences with non-human intelligences. Parkes even went so far as to claim that he was born as a result of alien intervention and that his real mother is, in fact, a 9-foot-tall green-skinned mantid with whom he has maintained a lifelong familial bond. During a live TV interview on Britain's This Morning programme, Parkes was asked about his claim that, during his childhood, one of his alien contacts once appeared to him as a character from a famous UK TV commercial in order to present him with a familiar and comforting face. Parkes told his interviewers, "We think we have some wonderful technology here on this earth, but the technology I've seen far surpasses anything that we have here, or at least anything that the military tells us they have. Indeed, according to Parkes, the mantids can appear to us as anything the human imagination can conjure." Parkes has even described instances where the mantids have manipulated time and space during their interactions with him. But why are the insectoids here? What is their agenda? Based on the hypnotically recalled memories of numerous abductees, it would appear that the insectoids' interests on Earth relate to genetic engineering and the creation of a hybrid species. Support for this theory can be found in the testimony of David Huggins, who has made international news in recent years with his story of lifelong contact with various alien species, including the mantids. Huggins claims to have had his first alien encounter at the age of 8, and that he has been used by the aliens ever since as part of an alien-human hybridization program. Huggins has depicted some of his experiences in his artwork, which has been viewed by millions of people around the world. Like many other people who have had encounters with the mantids, Huggins believes that these beings are a positive force in human affairs and that he welcomes their influence in his life. Indeed, Huggins claims that the mantids have actually saved his life on several occasions over the years when he came perilously close to fatal accidents which were miraculously avoided at the last moment thanks to the psychic influence of his alien friends. In 2011, Huggins described to journalist Corey Armpriester an occasion on which the mantids healed and rejuvenated him following a UFO experience which had left him particularly drained. Huggins said, "That night, the insect-like being took me to a door. We're in front of this doorway and there was this brilliant light. The insect-like being said I had to go inside the room with the light, so I went inside and it was just incredible. The light was passing right through me. I was in there for a few minutes. The next morning when I woke up, I had incredible energy and felt really energized for weeks afterwards." The same journalist also asked Huggins whether or not he is in his physical body during his alien experiences. Huggins' answer would indicate that perhaps some such experiences occur on the astral realm, or in a dimension free from the constraints of time as we understand it. Huggins told Armpriester, "Sometimes they come and just take me. I know I've had a lot of the out-of-body experiences. There are times when I'm with them, I feel like I'm in a human body, but a much younger body." But where do the insectoids come from? Some believe these beings come from the Draco system, and that, behind the scenes, they are working hand in hand with the Reptilians. But perhaps their origin is far stranger than imagined. Intriguingly, mantid beings are commonly encountered in altered states of consciousness induced by psychoactive substances. Numerous individuals who have taken dimethyltryptamine, or DMT as it's more commonly known, have reported the presence of insectoid entities while under the influence. It is almost as if, through the ingestion of DMT and other psychoactive substances like psilocybin, human consciousness is able to temporarily break through into a higher dimension, into the realm of the insectoids and other non-human entities. When this happens, it seems that the entities become immediately and acutely aware of our presence. Today, insectoid aliens continue to be reported by abductees, albeit they remain as rare and enigmatic as ever. As to their true nature and origins, satisfactory answers are likely to elude us for many years to come. In the absence of their official acknowledgement by any terrestrial government, these beings will continue to live in the realm of myth and folklore, in the powerful testimonies of the thousands of individuals who insist they have come face to face with intelligent entities from the borderlands of our accepted reality, and whose influence has changed them forever. In the pages of UFO literature, many hundreds of species of extraterrestrial entity have been described by tens of thousands of witnesses around the world. Among these alien variants, 4 stand out as being by far the most commonly reported: the Greys, the Nordics, the Reptilians, and the Insectoids. In this video, we'll be focusing on the Reptilians, examining their history, appearance, characteristics, technology, and agendas. The Reptilians, sometimes referred to as reptoids, are recognizable for their tall stature, scaly skin, and for their generally imposing and dominating demeanor. The Reptilians are thought to feast on human beings, both physically and spiritually, feeding off our individual and collective fears and anxieties. It is said that the Reptilians seek to subvert our free will and to control humanity by seeding and steering our beliefs and ideologies in the form of religion and politics, and specifically through the influence of elite organizations and secret societies. But where did this sinister and fearsome reptilian alien image come from? The foundational texts of our major religions are strewn with references to serpent beings and deities. The symbol of a serpent or snake played important roles in the religious and cultural life of ancient Egypt, Canaan, Mesopotamia, and Greece. Reptile gods and similar entities feature significantly in the core mythologies of countries around the world, notably the Aztec serpent god Quetzalcoatl and the reptilian Naga of India, among others. While the serpent sometimes lends itself to positive interpretations, typically it has been symbolic of evil, deception, chaos, and the underworld. In the early years of the modern UFO phenomenon, reports of reptilian entities were extremely rare, though it is perhaps of note that one of the earliest UFO abduction accounts on record did feature serpent symbology. In the early hours of December 3rd, 1967, police officer Herbert Schirmer was driving his patrol car through his town of Ashland, Nebraska, when he was confronted by a peculiar-looking object ahead of him. It was an egg-shaped craft, and it was hovering at around 8 to 10 feet above the surface of the road. The craft then proceeded to ascend into the sky, its red lights flashing as it did so, and Schirmer could hear a loud wailing noise. The UFO then exited the area by passing directly over Schirmer's vehicle. The police officer was astounded and remained where he was for a short while in order to regain his composure. Eventually, he headed back to the police station where he reported his experience in his official logbook. It wasn't too long before Shermer started to have traumatic dreams about the night of his encounter, and he soon realized that a significant part of his UFO experience was absent from his conscious memory. Eventually, Shermer underwent regression hypnosis sessions with respected researcher Dr. Leo Sprinkle. These sessions revealed an astonishing encounter with 3 alien beings. They were around 4.5 to 5 feet in height and wore tight-fitting one-piece outfits. Under hypnosis, Shermer recalled that the beings exited the craft and walked towards him as he sat paralyzed in his car. As they stood next to him, the police officer couldn't fail to notice that their uniforms displayed the image of a winged serpent. Although the beings themselves were not the scaly and imposing reptoids described in today's abduction accounts, Shermer did note that the pupils of their eyes were slits and making the eyes somewhat reptile-like in appearance. The full details of this remarkable abduction experience are well documented in the UFO literature, but particularly worthy of note is the message that these beings expressed to the police officer before they departed. The alien leader told Shermer enigmatically, "We want you to believe in us, but not too much." As the decades passed, reports of reptilian aliens became increasingly common in UFO abduction reports, and thousands of men and women from all walks of life have since described encounters with them. While the reptilians' technology is said by abductees to be extremely advanced, the majority of their power and influence is exerted not through traditional technological means, but on a vibrational level through their highly attuned psychic abilities. It is said that these psychic powers are utilized on a global scale to trick humanity into perceiving the reptilians not as monstrous aliens, but as entirely human in appearance. What are described as instances of shape-shifting are actually those rare occasions when the psychic block is temporarily removed, either by the alien or by the human experiencer, allowing the experiencer to see the alien in its true reptilian form. This, at least, is according to the work of author David Icke, who controversially contends that many members of the global elite are descended from reptilian bloodlines, and whose human visage masks their true, monstrous, and malevolent nature. Icke suggests that the world as we know it is in fact a hologram designed and maintained by a race of interdimensional reptilian beings, known to ancient Mesopotamian cultures as the Anunnaki. They feed not only on human flesh, but on the suffering of the human soul. In his developments of these theories throughout the 1990s, Icke drew significantly from ancient astronaut writer Zecharia Sitchin, who first made the theoretical connection between the Anunnaki and extraterrestrials in his 1976 book, The 12th Planet. In his own influential book, The Biggest Secret, published in 1999, Icke suggested that the Anunnaki arrived on Earth in its ancient past and quickly began to oppress and mate with us, spreading out their bloodlines and insidiously infiltrating all spheres of human society. The ultimate goal was the total and invisible domination of humanity. Icke claimed that these beings were responsible for designing all the major religions of our world, as well as our dominant systems of government, all the while drawing their essential life energy from us. As the pages of time turned and as the beings' control of us became ever more sophisticated, humanity's early interactions with the reptilians fell into the shadows of myth and legend, and we convinced ourselves that stories of serpent gods were nothing more than religious metaphors. But according to David Icke, through eons of selective interbreeding with humans, the reptilians have stamped their genetic imprint upon us. through the bloodlines of royal families and political dynasties, the Anunnaki continue their efforts to steer humanity down a path of fear and division. The most effective way to fight back, says Ike, is to unconditionally love one another, thereby raising our collective vibrational frequency and making Earth an inhospitable spiritual environment for our alien oppressors. But where did the reptilians come from? Ike and others, including many UFO experiencers, claim that various reptilian species hail from the stellar constellations of Draco, Sirius and Orion, but that they also now reside in our own inner Earth, hidden from human reach. Draco, the constellation most commonly associated with the reptilians, is named so because it's shaped like a great dragon, or, from its Latin name, Draconem, a huge serpent. It's not uncommon for the reptilians to be reported alongside the Greys and occasionally the Insectoids, both of which appear to be subservient to the reptilians, judging by their observed interactions during abduction scenarios. According to experiencer testimonies, these abductions are conducted as an essential component of the reptilians' age-old genetic manipulation and breeding program, which is designed to keep humanity malleable and compliant. The reptilians are consistently described as being dominant, calculating, and highly intelligent. They view not only humanity but other alien races as being inferior to them, as workers, servants, or slaves. Reptilian entities have been described as standing between 6 and 12 feet tall and extremely muscular. Some of these beings, especially those from the Draco system, have been reported as having retractable wings on their backs. Various UFO experiencers have said that these Draco beings are the most powerful of all the reptilian species, and that they can operate on the astral plane, influencing us individually and collectively through our dreams and nightmares. The reptilians have also woven their way into pop culture, blurring the lines between fact and fantasy in numerous movies and TV shows. Between 1983 and 1984, the TV series V told the story of flesh-eating reptilian aliens who disguise themselves as humans and who exert their influence on our society and politics. The show was successfully rebooted for a new generation in 2009, but was cancelled after just 2 seasons, despite enjoying a strong fan base and a positive critical reception. In 1988, director John Carpenter made They Live. The film follows a blue-collar drifter who finds a pair of sunglasses that allow him to see the stark reality of corporate America, where shops are covered with subliminal signs that say, "Submit, stay asleep, and do not question authority." The world is being secretly run in this Orwellian fashion by malevolent aliens, whose true monstrous form is disguised from the masses. In the movie, these aliens are allied with the US establishment, the human elite having been promised tickets off-planet when doomsday arrives. Intriguingly, They Live was pulled from cinemas just 2 weeks after its November the 4th release date in 1988. The co-star of the movie, Keith David, said of the film's failure, "Not that anybody's being paranoid, but it was interesting that They Live was #1 at the box office, and suddenly you couldn't see it anywhere. It was snatched." Perhaps Carpenter's film was a little too close to the truth. Of all the alien species featured in UFO literature, the reptilians are the most inseparable from ancient myth and legend, and so it's particularly difficult to separate the fact from the fantasy. In modern-day abduction accounts, the reptilians are reported as being less forthcoming to human experiencers about their true nature, origins and motives than the other alien species, such as the Nordics or even the Greys. This only deepens the mystery surrounding them. But in seeking to better understand the history and nature of these entities, we might better understand the nature of our relationship to them and ultimately better understand ourselves. This video will be focusing on the Nordics, examining their history, appearance, characteristics and agendas through the lens of a number of little-known cases. During the first 2 decades of the modern UFO phenomenon, many close encounters featured descriptions of extraterrestrial men and women who were human-like in appearance, attractive, often with long, light-colored hair, pale skin, and delicate facial features. These beings ranged in height from around 5 to 7 feet. For their passing resemblance to the people of Scandinavia, this alien type would come to be known collectively in UFO literature as the Nordic. The Nordics came to popular attention in the United States through the stories of a number of contactees who claimed to have established ongoing dialogues with beings who expressed peace and love in their messages to humanity. These contactees referred to these aliens as their space brothers, and they attracted many followers in search of extraterrestrial salvation. A common theme in the messages of the Nordics during this era was environmental and geopolitical concern, with the beings frequently expressing their consternation at humanity's warlike tendencies in an age of nuclear tension, as well as our general disregard for our delicate biosphere. The beings were reported as urging their human contacts to heed their warnings about the potentially disastrous future of our planet should we not soon change our primitive ways. The early contactees included George Adamski, George Van Tassel, Truman Bethurum, Howard Menger and Paul Villa, among others. But all these individuals were of questionable character and were considered by most UFO researchers to be prone to fantasy and deception, and today their stories are widely considered to be nothing more than formative tall tales in the evolution of UFO mythology. However, descriptions of UFO occupants closely matching those reported by the American contactees were also widespread across Europe and South America during the same time frame. These reports typically were made by credible people in isolated rural areas who had no prior interest in or even knowledge of the UFO phenomenon, and who sought no money or fame from their testimonies. On the evening of December the 9th, 1954, a farmer, Almira da Costa e Rosa, was cultivating his crop of French beans and maize 2.5 miles from Venancio Aires when he heard something like a sewing machine. He noticed that the animals in a nearby field were panicking. He then saw an object that he described as being shaped like an explorer's hat, cream-colored, and was enveloped in a smoky haze. It was hovering just off the ground, and 3 strange-looking men were there, one inside the craft, one inside the barbed wire fence, and one close to the farmer. In astonishment, the farmer dropped his hoe, and the strange man smiled, approached, picked up the hoe, examined it carefully, and handed it back to him. The man then bent down, plucked a few plants and walked back to the machine with the others. The craft then rose slowly, accelerated and flashed away towards the west at high speed. The farmer, who was almost completely illiterate, had never heard of flying saucers, but he was able to study these men at close range and in great detail. They were of medium height, broad-shouldered, with long blonde hair, which blew in the wind. They had extremely pale skin and slanted eyes, and were not normal-looking by Earth standards. Their clothing consisted of light brown coverall garments fastened to heelless shoes. Having no knowledge or understanding of the UFO phenomenon, the farmer concluded that these strange men must have been aviators from some foreign country. Just a few weeks earlier, on the 21st of October 1954, a particularly vivid close encounter report emerged from rural England. At 4:45 p.m. on the afternoon in question, Jessie Rustenberg and her 2 young sons witnessed a UFO hovering directly over their roof while outside their farmhouse in Ranton, Staffordshire. Rustenberg described it as a massive disc that was bright silver and shaped like a Mexican hat. She told the Staffordshire newsletter that the craft made a loud hissing sound, like when a blacksmith puts hot iron into water, but much louder. Rustenberg further described the object as having a dome-like glass within which she could see two beings looking directly down at her and her sons. Rustenberg said, "They were the most beautiful people I have seen, but they were not human. Their foreheads were large in proportion to the rest of their faces, and they had long golden hair. I could only see them from the chest upwards, and they were wearing what looked like vivid blue polo neck jumpers and what looked like fish bowls on their heads." Presumably the beings were friendly, for Rustenberg related that she experienced no tension at all as she gazed upon their faces, noting, "I felt a sense of peace I have never felt since." The object then proceeded to circle the cottage before departing vertically at great speed. The incident was widely reported by the local media at the time, and Rustenberg's sons confirmed her account. She later suffered from symptoms her doctors said may have been caused by radiation poisoning. Rustenberg said, "For a while I was in a terrible mess, but gradually I got better." Despite being subjected to intense ridicule by understandably incredulous locals, Rustenberg stuck to her story until the day she died. In the mid-1960s, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, conducted a cosmic top-secret study of the UFO problem titled The Assessment. This was according to the late Robert Dean, a retired U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major who was assigned to NATO's SHAPE headquarters in Brussels during the mid-1960s. Dean claimed that while stationed at SHAPE in 1964, he had limited access to the assessment and its conclusions were shocking. Dean said that part of the study stated that NATO had come to the conclusion that we had 4 different civilizations, cultures, intelligences that were present here on Earth and that were visiting us and interacting with us. Particularly interesting, said Dean, was that one of the alien groups was identical in appearance to humans, or rather, we were identical to them. This was of grave concern to NATO leadership. Delivering a public lecture at the Civic Theatre in Leeds, England in 1994, Dean stated that some of the human-looking ETs were so similar to us that they could sit next to you in an airplane or in a restaurant in a coat and tie or a dress, and you would never know. They could be sitting next to you in a theatre like this. Dean noted that this was a matter of great concern to the admirals and generals at SHAPE headquarters in Paris. Some of the discussions which went on in the war room were kind of frightening, said Dean, and some of them were rather amusing. One officer said, "My God, man, do you realize that these aliens could be walking up and down the corridors of SHAPE headquarters and we wouldn't even know who they were?" Encounters with Nordics are not just a relic of the Cold War. Indeed, reports of these human-like alien entities continue to this day, albeit with less frequency than in decades past. A notable encounter was reported in July of 2009 in the immediate vicinity of a spectacular crop formation that appeared near Silbury Hill in England. In his write-up of the encounter, UK UFO investigator Andrew Russell described receiving a phone call from one of his contacts in the Wiltshire Police Constabulary. According to Russell, the police officer, who wished to remain anonymous, was driving past Silbury Hill early on the morning of July the 6th, 2009, when he saw 3 figures standing in the formation there. At first, he thought they were forensic officers, as they were dressed in white coveralls. He stopped his car and approached the field. The figures were all well over 6 foot and had long blonde hair. They seemed to be inspecting the crop. When the witness reached the edge of the field, he heard what he believed to be a sound not dissimilar to static electricity. He felt the hair on his arms and back of his neck raise up. He shouted to the figures, who at first ignored him, not even glancing at him. When he tried to enter the field, they looked up and began running. The police officer reported that the beings ran at a superhuman velocity, so fast that the officer became scared. He said, "I'm no slouch, but they were moving so fast. I looked away for a second, and when I looked back, they were gone." The crackling noise was still audible, however, and the officer began to feel uneasy and decided to head back to his car. For the rest of the day, the officer had a pounding headache that he couldn't shift. In the days following his experience, the officer inexplicably acquired an awareness that the beings he saw were clones of one another and that they shared a hive mind. He explained that, despite the beings' interest in the crop circle, they were not responsible for creating it. Russell said of the police witness, "He doesn't know where this information came from, and these concepts and thoughts are outside his usual frame of reference." The implication here is that the police officer had received a mental download from an alien source. It should be noted that the crop circle that the beings were said to be inspecting was 350 feet in diameter and took the form of a quetzal feathered crown once worn by Mayan kings. Crop circle researchers believe this formation to be representative of apocalypse or perhaps rebirth, again tying in with historical accounts of the Nordics expressing concern for the future of humanity and planet Earth. But where do the Nordics come from? In the early contactee cases, the Nordics were reported as hailing from planets within our own solar system. George Adamski claimed his space brothers came from the planet Venus, for example. Given what we know about Venus's inhospitable atmosphere, however, Adamski's assertion has always been hard to take seriously. Though some of Adamski's supporters insist that his alien contacts did indeed reside on planets in our solar system, albeit on a higher vibrational frequency to our own, making them undetectable to our astronomical equipment. Still another contactee, the infamous Billy Meyer, claimed that his Nordic contacts come from much farther afield, specifically from the Pleiades star cluster some 444 light-years from Earth. Why, though, do the Nordics look like us? How do we account for the human-like appearance of these aliens as described by many hundreds of witnesses? Science traditionally has told us that the anatomy of alien life will be radically different to our own, unrecognizable in every way. But this is not necessarily so. The Cambridge University professor of paleontology, Simon Conway Morris, has stated that extraterrestrials are likely to closely resemble human beings. The UK Telegraph quoted Morris as saying, "It is difficult to imagine evolution in alien planets operating in any manner other than Darwinian. In the end, the number of options is remarkably restrictive. I don't think an alien will be a blob. If aliens are out there, they should have evolved just like us. In short, alien life is likely to be very similar to us." According to the Italian contactee Bruno Chibaudi, the human form is universal throughout the cosmos. And yet, said Chibaudi, the idea of this has generally been rejected by Earthmen as impossible, no doubt because, as almost always, the truth is too simple to be accepted. Whether they are real or just figments of overactive imaginations, the Nordics have been a consistent feature in UFO literature and debate for almost 7 decades. The Nordic strikingly human appearance invites the assumption that we are somehow related to them, a sentiment expressed by many who have claimed contact with them. Their precise agenda on Earth is not entirely clear. However, based on the weight of reports over the decades, the Nordics clearly exhibit a spiritual interest in humanity. They walk among us unnoticed by the masses. They are possessed of wondrous abilities, including healing and telepathy. And perhaps somewhat alarmingly, they appear deeply concerned about our current evolutionary path and the survival of our species.